Well, I hope I can do this properly. I want to say how much I appreciate this event and all the work that went into it by especially the people who led the organization, Bob Leone and Lynn Parsons and Don Lehman and Mike Hansons and the others. Peter, yes indeed, Peter.
And Dick.
And Dick. And Dick, I want to talk about Dick some. But I want you to know that the thing I am proudest of in my career is my students. I really feel blessed because although the way it's been presented here is that I have taught the students, but actually, I'll tell you a secret, I learned more from the students, I learned more from you than you did from me. You inspired me and you instructed me, in many cases literally. Peter, for example, taught me how to turn the computer on. Prior to that, for many years, I discovered that that this computer stuff was tedious. You had to, in the early days of mainframe computers, you had to fill out these forms, the tedious stuff to do statistical routines, and there were always people who liked to do this, and I thought, well, that's fine. I'll give you instructions, and you go do it, and bring it back to me. And so ultimately, that wouldn't work very well anymore. So I had to learn something about how to operate computers. But I learned many other things from you. I want to talk a little bit today about individuals, but first I have some numbers here that I just calculated. I think they're accurate. There were 56 students who have completed the degree, and Tae-Sun Kim here is about to complete his degree, so he'll be 57. So of those 56, 30 were Americans, and I have a list here of those with different nationalities. India leads the list with 7. There were 7 students from India, 3 from Belgium, 3 from France, 2 from Holland, 1 from Israel, 1 from China, 1 from Jamaica, 1 from Finland, 1 from Japan, 1 from Korea. Tae-Sun will be 2, 1 from Taiwan, and 1 from Greece. I think that accounts for it. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the students and some of the experiences. Lynn gave you a rather complete description of his experience with me. But I think that the thing that sticks in my mind about the early period at Purdue was the fact that the philosophy and the curriculum at Purdue at that time were atypical, to say the least. The students, the master's students were mostly engineering students, and there was a strong quantitative orientation. And the PhD program, students were required to take courses in multivariate statistics, among other things, which I taught at a very high level. And this was unheard of in the early period. And in fact, when Lynn graduated and some of the other early students, the job market looked at them and said, well, these are obviously very smart people. But this research, this quantitative stuff, I don't know about that. I don't think they can teach. So later, with experience, the job market learned that these people, not only could they could teach very well, and furthermore, they were doing cutting-edge research. And so over time, I think the competition recognized this, and other doctoral programs emulated the program at Purdue. And so I no longer had a monopoly, which I did at one point. Monopolies are good things, by the way, if you're the monopolist. So anyway, so I think there was the impact of what was happening at Purdue was not only in terms of the output, but in terms of the response of the marketplace to the success at Purdue. Okay, let me talk about Don Lehman a little bit. Don mentioned that he did this soft drink experiment, and this was really an exciting thing, really an amazing thing, because Don, we talked about this some, and it was, I take credit for some of the idea, but Don did the execution. And he had these students and secretaries come in to, well, we had, I think it was in the basement, although we did have a laboratory, but I think he did the experiment in the basement of the building. So the secretaries and students would come in every day, and they would fill out a questionnaire. We'd say, what is your soft drink preference, rank order. I'd like Coke first, Pepsi second, so on. We measured other things, attitudes. And then we had the soft drink. And so after they filled out the forms, they would go make a choice. And as Don said, well, we had these cases where people they just told us that they preferred Pepsi. That's their favorite soft drink. And then a few seconds later, they were making a choice, and most of the time, or half the time at least, they weren't choosing the brand they said they preferred. Amazing. What's going on here? I mean, the fundamentals of choice theory and economics and behavioral, most of the behavioral research would indicate that if A is preferred to B, and B is chosen, that's irrational behavior. So what the world's going on here? So half of the time, and this is really amazing stuff. Now it's not surprising today, or even today, it's some people don't understand the market share principle. Some people, some smart managers even today conclude that if they have 30% share, that means that 30% of the market always chooses their product. Even today, there's some people who believe that. In fact, not long ago, Coca-Cola Company believed that. I'm not sure they still do, but a few years ago, the Coca-Cola Company principles was that their market share meant that everybody always chose Coke. If the people that preferred Coke chose Coke. So this was really a very significant piece of research. It was published in a behavioral science, I think, which was a prestigious journal in behavioral science. So this was really significant work. Now Jim Ginter and Rick Winter did a laboratory experiment. Also, I think in the Jim's case, we actually had new products, was it?
Did, yes.
They were new products in Europe, and we got them. And Jim did this very nice experiment. We had television commercials,
Yes.
and so on. So we were learning how to do experiments Let me talk about Dick Whitting a little bit. Dick, as I think, who was it this morning? I think it was Mike who mentioned the airplane from Procter & Gamble flying into West Lafayette, Indiana, and picking me up and taking me to the airport. And this was when I was working on this famous case with Clorox, and involving Procter & Gamble's ownership of Clorox. And Dick Whitting was actually my research assistant, and so Dick was doing work on that project. We were also working on a pooling paper at the time. But this was one of the early applications of significance of econometrics at Procter & Gamble. For many years I had been going to Procter & Gamble trying to get them to work with me, give me some data, let us do these econometric studies of the effects of advertising, especially, and other things, promotions and the like. And Procter & Gamble's attitude was always, the top management was no. There was a management science group in the company who was supporting what I would like to do, but it was against the P&G philosophy. But they were confronted with this lawsuit. And the lawsuit involved Purex company. What had happened is that Procter & Gamble had acquired Clorox in the 1950s, and the Federal Trade Commission had challenged the acquisition as being an illegal acquisition, even though today, or even not some time ago, the philosophy changed and it would have been okay for them to buy Clorox because they didn't have competing products. P&G didn't have bleach and Clorox didn't have detergent. So, but anyway, they challenged it, and it was fought out in the courts over many years, and finally reached the trial stage in the 1970s. And so what happened was that they went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ordered P&G to divest Clorox. And immediately when they divested, they were sued by Purex. And Purex, the basis for the lawsuit was, Purex says we lost market share, and so this was an illegal acquisition, so therefore please pay us $500 million. So P&G called me, the top management called me and said, we have this data on the liquid bleach market, we'd like for you to do this econometric analysis and tell us objectively what causes market share in the liquid bleach market. And so Dick was heavily involved in doing this project. And what Dick and I found was that Purex had lost market share, but they had not lost it to Clorox. In fact, P&G had been operating Clorox at arm's length because of the lawsuit. So Purex lost market share because, why? Because they were producing private label. They were heavily producing private label, so they didn't lose market share to Procter & Gamble. They lost market share to private label, which they themselves were promoting. So anyway, that was Dick was involved in that, and he and I did an important paper on pooling. I think that's still a paper worth considering. Let's see. Dave Riebstein also did a soft drink experiment, which turned out to be a classic piece of work, more elaborate than the earlier one that Don had done, and it resulted in a paper that was referred to the zero order process. It was a paper that was, I think, a very significant paper about the order of the process. Let's see now. Okay, I think early econometricians, Dan Horsky and Mike Hanson's both had traits I think that are ideal for PhD students. And the trait was that they both began working on their doctoral dissertation when they started the PhD program. They both knew what they wanted to do. And I remember Mike in particular was learning time series econometrics pretty much on his own. So Dan and Mike this is a good lesson for PhD students. The sooner you can decide on the topic, the better off you are. And so these two guys both knew they made an important choice very early in the careers. Now, there's so many students. Albert Bimore was working on stochastic choice and compound models, and he is one of the world's experts, I think, on how to compound distributions and what is it, the shifted Gompertz compounded with something or other, and it leads to something, leads to Bass model, okay. And let Bob Leon, he and I, he was very adept at the econometrics, and later, I think it was after he had completed his dissertation, that we worked together on this paper involving the aggregation issue and lags. And this was, I think, this was a big deal. Pete Clark first showed that if you have lags and you aggregate the data, if you go from bi-monthly to semi-annual to annual, that the lag coefficient is going to decline and the other coefficient is going to increase. And so we, Bob and I, worked together very well, I think, in producing 2 or 3 papers that put some more detail into the issue of aggregation bias involving lags. Now, let me see. Kaz Takata, where's Kaz? He's here. Kaz was a student at Purdue. Your degree is actually from Purdue, right? When I moved to Dallas, Kaz showed up and said he wanted to come, and he did his dissertation, and I was very happy about that, because what I had discovered at Purdue is that the PhD students teach each other. They maybe learn more from each other than they do from the faculty. And so it's good to have more senior students interacting with beginners. Trishi Krishnan was a very good student who kept persisting, kept bringing equations, and I kept rejecting them, as he said. And but finally, we worked out an equation that seemed to be nice and beautiful and elegant, and led to a closed form solution for a Bath model. Let's see, Anand Krishnamurthy, is Anand still here? He's gone? Okay. Anand is the most recent student. There's Tarun Dewan, who's sitting up there. Tarun, it's nice to see you. Let's see, Demetrius. Demetrius was a PhD student in statistics, and like some others, he recognized that marketing was a good area, and I'm very glad he did. Let's see, who else? Oh, Marcy Armstrong is sitting up here, and Marcy was one of my early female students, and she had a lot of courage and to come into the male environment, and Marcy has done quite well. And let's see, who else? If I'm missing people. Patty. Oh yeah, Patty was one of the early students at UTD, and Patty was an outstanding student, and I'm very proud of him. Peter was also, as I mentioned, Peter was my computer science instructor, and he did a very good job of that. Where's Shuba? Shuba is here. Shuba was not my student in the sense that I didn't supervise her dissertation, but I did work closely. I think I inspired Shuba, and she took the class in econometrics, and later we worked on several papers together. And Shuba was also my instructor in certain ways involving time series work. Let's see, is Bay? Here is Bay. Bay is going to receive an award for Bay's award. Bay took the longest time to complete his PhD dissertation of any student I've ever known. But in the end, it was good. I mean, how long was it? 10 years? 10 years. Okay. I'd forgotten about Bay, but he was working on his dissertation, and I didn't see him. I thought he'd gone to Korea or something. I didn't know where he was. And one day he shows up in my office, and he's got a dissertation, and it's good. So let's see. Who am I missing here? I know I must be missing somebody.
Kalyan was here last night, but I don't see
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Well, Kalyan, I should mention him. He wins the award for the longest time to get a paper published. When he did his dissertation and reference projects. Oh, I'll have to tell you a Kalyan story. Kalyan came from Purdue to UTD, and he had been a PhD student in the statistics department at UTD, in Purdue, and he came over to the management school, and he came to me, and he'd been a student for a year or two. I've forgotten how long it was. But he obviously had a very good math background, and he was very bright. And so when I moved to Dallas, he said he wanted to come. And I told him I thought it was a mistake. He shouldn't do it. But anyway, one day he shows up in my office, came on the bus. His bag, his luggage had been stolen. He had no money. There was no transportation to UT Dallas, and so here he was. So anyway, I called John Norton and some of the other students and turned him over. And so anyway, Kalyan it was good that he came, because he was a senior student and instructed the others. But when it came time to do his dissertation, he had not learned anything like me. He didn't know anything about how to use the computer. So he was going to do a theoretical dissertation. And I thought, well, not many people can do that, but he could. So he worked on it. He kept coming up with ideas. And the ideas seemed good, but he couldn't develop them. So finally, I did what I've done to some other students. I gave him a box of IBM cards with data and told him to go do something with it. And so he did something with it. And it was, he learned to do it, he had to learn how to work with data. And he came up with this paper on reference pricing. And it was really quite good. It was a very good paper. But it was rejected by journals. Maybe 2 or 3 journals rejected the paper. But it kept being cited. I mean, in the meantime, it became one of the most heavily cited papers in the literature as a working paper. And so, but a couple of years ago, I think he was visiting in, was it Belgium? It could have been. I think Warnick, it can be.
Yeah, he visited at KUL. He visited the Catholic University.
Yeah, and it was published anyway. They decided they would publish the paper, so it's now published in this Belgian journal. So that was like 20 years later, huh? Okay. Okay, so I just want to tell you how proud I am of all of you and thank all of you for coming. And I see Anand is here. He's still here. You didn't speak up. No, so I'm glad Anand is here. I'm glad all of you are here. And I just want to tell you that, finally I'll close with a bit of philosophy and talk about life and what is life. Well, to me, life is remembered experiences. And so thinking about my own life, I think I can tell you that this is the happiest time of my life, and due to you. So thank you very much.
I don't think there's anything else we should say. He deserves the last word. Happy Father's Day. Thank you.